Have you ever thought about who will be there for you during birth and postpartum outside of the medical professionals? Who will guide you and support you physically, spiritually, emotionally? Let's talk about it in today's episode of Birthing in Faith. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Birthing in Faith, a podcast for Black Christian women. If it's your first time, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here listening with us. And if you have binged all of the episodes, welcome back to the newest episode. I have been waiting to record this episode for the longest time. This is such an important topic, and it is really the concept that I'm teaching constantly, and it is my passion and my desire to see this change in our society and alone amongst God's daughters. This topic can truly change your pregnancy, your birth, your postpartum experience, and that is building your birth team. Now, I know it can be overwhelming to think about who you need in your corner, especially if this is your first baby. But trust me when I say that your birth team is one of the most powerful tools that you have for creating the experience that you want. So go ahead, grab some coffee, tea, water, whatever your hydration is for the moment, and let's just break this down. As a labor nurse turned doula and birth coach, let me set this scene for you. The average woman goes into pregnancy and birth with a minimal amount of people supporting her. Most likely she'll have her spouse, partner, she'll have a family member, maybe her mom, her sister, maybe her best friend. And she will walk into the hospital or wherever she's giving birth, relying on her OB or midwife and the staff that's there. She's expecting them to fulfill all of her other needs and to tell her what she needs. This approach is the absolute most common. And I bet if you're listening and you've had a baby already, you're like, yep, that's exactly what I did. This approach almost always results in a sense of feeling unsupported in some way or capacity. And the average woman probably doesn't even recognize that this whole situation could be so much better. So let me introduce you to the concept of building your birth team. Let's start with the basics. What is a birth team? So your birth team is going to be a curated group of people who you've determined would have specific roles to support you so that you have care holistically for your whole self. These are folks who you've chosen to show up for you physically, emotionally, spiritually, medically. And the number one thing I'm sure is on your brain is, why does this even matter? So for one, because you deserve to feel supported, heard, and centered during one of the most important moments of your life. A strong birth team isn't just going to be there to just cheer you on. Their purpose is to help you to make decisions, to advocate for you, to create a safe space for you, a peaceful space for you to give birth. Because you're not just birthing your baby, you're birthing a new version of yourself as well. And it takes caring for the whole woman to see her thrive. And if you never heard this before, you haven't heard it lately, you were meant to thrive in motherhood. And so number two of why this matters, you are the expert on what you need. Others may be able to give you like suggestions and even professional opinions, but no one can tell you what you need. Ultimately, you are the one that knows what level of care is going to be beneficial for you. And so when you're surrounded by the proper amount of support for you, you can anticipate a beautiful transformation. And for us as Black women, having a solid birth team is the literal game changer. With the maternal health disparities that we're facing, it's crucial, it's pivotal, it's vital to have people who are looking out for your best interests in several capacities. Too many women are slipping through the cracks, and that's just because the concept of a birth team is not a standard. So let's change that. Get into the details of who to consider putting on your birth team. Everyone's birth team is not going to look exactly the same. It just depends on who you are and what you need for you to have the best experience possible. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now. It's not just your medical provider, your OB or midwife. It's going to be a whole team. So let's look at the lineup. Number one is going to be your spouse or your partner. Most likely, this person is already your go-to person. So if you have a spouse or partner, it's most likely that person. But if not, then it's probably a family member or a close friend. Your support person needs to be that number one person that knows you and knows how to keep you calm and grounded. Number two, we're looking at your medical provider, your OB, your midwife, whichever you're choosing to have. Of course, you'll need to choose a medical provider who aligns with your beliefs and respects your voice and your wishes. I'm just going to say for the record right now, I do not believe in or align with any form of free birth. So you will never hear me talking about you don't need a medical provider. I think that's wildly unsafe, and unnecessary in this day and age. I'm always going to recommend a medical provider. But what's most important is going to be doing the work beforehand to choose wisely who your medical provider will be. And I know this day and age in the US is very hard because we have OB practices or midwife groups who work together. So you might align with one person, but when it's time to give birth, you don't know who exactly is going to be on call. It's really important for you to see all of the providers in a group before you go into labor to determine if you align with majority of them or if you see any red flags that give you the signal to go ahead and find another practice. This is especially important if you are a first-time mom or if you want to try for a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. Next, we're going to talk about the doula. You know, I'm definitely going to recommend a doula for anybody. I had a doula for my own birth. I got a lot of questions, people asking, are you going to have a doula? Are you going to be your own doula? No, I had my own doula because I think it's important for every woman in labor and birth to be able to relax and be free and not have to think about details. And it's really helpful to do that when you have a doula who is very, very comfortable with labor and birth, knows what to expect, has experience, and can help relieve your partner, your support person. Labor is hard work. And so you want to have that tag team, at least two. And so that's where a doula would come in. This person you hire to provide you education and prep during pregnancy. And then when labor hits, they provide the emotional and physical support. Different doulas have different capacities and abilities. So if you want more than that, you definitely want to look at a doula that has more of a full spectrum doula. If you're just looking for specifically labor support, there's labor doulas. If you just want postpartum support, there are postpartum doulas. But if you are having a hospital birth, a doula is especially vital because they can help you navigate hospital policies and potentially advocate for you. Not every doula is going to be able to advocate for you. It just depends on their personal beliefs and experience with your place of wherever you choose to give birth. So those are your baseline three. I'm going to say that my personal belief is that every woman should have at least those three. Do I understand that some people don't want those three? Absolutely. And ultimately, like I said, you are the expert on what you need for your own support. But my biggest concern is all the ways that women can fall through cracks. And so I firmly believe that the more support you have, at least just aware of who can be the one to help you, then the better place that you'll be in. So the first three were your starters. The rest of the team are going to be your support team players. And so then next I have your childbirth educator. If you've never taken a childbirth class, I highly, highly recommend having an educator a part of your birth prep team during pregnancy. So they'll be the one to break down the process of what you're going to experience and give you expectations so you can feel empowered even before labor begins. The next part of your birth team is going to be your family and friends. This is your village, the people who know you, have known you, who are really excited. These are people that come into your baby shower that are going to be the ones around as your baby is growing. And so what's so important about who you invite into this part of your life is that you want to be very intentional about who you invite into it. This is about support, not obligation. At such a vulnerable time in your life, you want people who are going to show up and speak life. You don't want negative Nancy's. You don't want people talking about, oh, I heard that this negative thing happened to this person, so go ahead and prepare for that for you. You want people that will be realistic, yes, but that will remind you how well you're doing, looking on the bright side, the cup is half full. And you want the ones who are not going to care how you look. They don't need to see you spruced up with your makeup on. You want people who don't care and also don't expect you to do anything for them, because it's all about your healing and bonding with your growing family for this season. With my clients, we talk about this cocoon phase, and that's when you're like really nestled in and very introspective because you just had a baby and you're working on healing and bonding with your baby. Your expectations of this cocoon phase is what you would communicate to your family and friends. That will be your village. How they can support you in a way that is actually beneficial for you. And a little asterisk on your village support. In this category is where you want to add your spiritual support. Who are the people that you know are your prayer warriors? Who are the people that you know that are worshipers? You want people who are who may not be in your space physically, but are wherever they are praying for you, praying for your situation, praying over your experience, praying for your health, your baby's health, whether it's a pastor, a prayer partner, an elder in your church. You want someone who's going to be reminding you of God's promises, because you need to be grounded to the truth during labor, birth, and postpartum. These last ones are the ones that are less commonly known and are absolutely critical for setting yourself up for success. These areas speak more to postpartum, but because birth turns into postpartum so quickly, having these people already in your mind, in your phone, on speed dial before you give birth can literally be the difference of thriving and a meltdown. So next, consider locking in your lactation support. One of my biggest pro tips is to connect with a lactation support specialist before you give birth, during pregnancy, because you're already going to have questions about feeding, and you're going to have some desires or ideas and expectations for babies feeding, whether you breastfeed, exclusively pump, formula feed. These are things that you can talk through with your lactation specialist, ideally during pregnancy before the baby comes. So you can start with a certain plan. And once baby comes, if any issues arise, sometimes they don't. But if they do, you have them on speed dial and you don't even have to think about it. You know who to ask for help. If you are planning to have a hospital birth, you will most likely see a hospital lactation specialist while you're there. But I know that there are some hospitals that their lactation specialists only work Monday through Friday. So what happens when you give birth on a Friday night and you leave by Monday morning? You don't see them. And then even when you discharge, you don't have access to them again. They are only in-hospital specialists. Next player on our list is going to be an infant sleep specialist, or some people call it a sleep consultant. This is someone who can give you insight into what to expect for baby sleep. And we all know that if baby's not sleeping, you're not sleeping. So talking with this specialist gives you realistic expectations for the average baby. But when your baby is born and you get to know them and you're noticing some things that are outside of the average baby, you have someone who you can talk to get advice, to get support, to get encouragement. And I know that sleep training is becoming very, very, very popular. But there's still a lot of questions you might have, like when to start, which method to use. This sleeping consultant is who you talk to about that. I know for me, I blew up my sleep consultant. I was talking to them all the time because my baby's sleep was completely out of your normal baby sleep. And that's okay. There was nothing wrong with her, but I needed help to figure out what was going to work for my family, because let me tell you, I need about 10 hours of sleep every night, and I wasn't getting that. There would be nights when I was up with her from like 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. She didn't sleep, and my sleep consultant was able to ease my anxieties. It still was very anxiety inducing for me, but I received so much relief from talking to a professional about what to actually expect and how to support her in her sleep needs. And the last one on the list is going to be your pediatrician. So it may seem odd to think about your pediatrician as being on your birth team, but like I said, it goes from birth to postpartum so fast that you might as well include the pediatrician in this, because you're going to be seeing them a lot in the beginning. From birth to first pediatrician appointment could be as little as 1 day. And so learn from me. Go ahead and put your pediatrician on your birth team list. It's really important to do your due diligence during pregnancy and determine who is your pediatrician. Even think about, what are my values when it comes to a pediatrician? Because not every pediatrician is made equal. For some people, it might be really important for your pediatrician to have several offices in your area and availability at any time for visits. For someone else, they might prefer a smaller office with less patients, but that means more time with your pediatrician. It takes some consideration to determine what you would think is ideal for your family and when it comes to a pediatrician. And the reality is, if you're working with a pediatrician and you end up not really liking them, you can always change. But at least when the baby's first born, you're going a lot. You might as well think about it and choose wisely. So I know that was kind of a long list. I'm sure some of you maybe have never even considered any of that before in your life, about all these other people who can be incorporated into supporting you during birth. And that's okay. This is what I'm here for. And if you remember from episode 3, how much I was saying that start preparing before you're pregnant really is helpful because you have more time to think about it. But even if you're already pregnant or have already had your baby, it's okay. You can always just start now. So we've determined who can be on our birth team. But let me give you some tips about how to find the right people. I would first start by, number 1, consider what your values are. You have to know what you want for yourself before you know what to look for in your support people. Right now, I have a freebie on my website. It's called the Doula Interview Guide. It guides you through the process of interviewing potential doulas with the questions to ask. And what's really cool about my doula guide is that it also has questions to ask yourself about what is important and what is of value to you and for your experience. There's a link in the description where you can get that doula guide for free to help you think about how to start this process. But after you think about your beliefs and your values, you do your research. Google is your friend. Honestly, social media is your friend. You can just look up, hey, midwife in your area, OB in your area, doula in your area. And that's where it's important to know what your values are so that you can refine that search with those things. Like, are you wanting unmedicated? Are you wanting a Black provider? Is it important for you to only work with one provider and not be in an OB group? When you do your research, you want to know how to refine that search. Then next, you want to have a consultation and ask questions. You want to think about it. You want to think about it like this. You are interviewing this person to see if they fit in your team. Can they make it on your squad? You got to ask questions in order to do that. So don't be afraid to ask. What's their experience? How do they handle emergencies? How they will support your preferences? Honestly, a number 1 question I encourage you to ask, especially an OB or midwife, is, are you aware of our current Black maternal health crisis, and what are you doing to better that situation in your practice? I know that seems like a big, bold question, but honestly, let them tell you what they really feel, because at least then you know what to expect. You can't be surprised. If you don't ask, you never know. Then you want to pray and trust your gut. If someone doesn't feel right, if someone doesn't feel safe, they're not the right fit. You want people in your space that will make you feel safe and seen. Of course, you want to lean into your community. You want to ask for recommendations, friends, family, online groups, people that you've worked with before that you respect their opinions. Most of the times, the best referrals come from other moms. And the work doesn't start there. I'm so sorry to tell you, but the work does not stop there. Once you've chosen your birth team, once you've curated these people who are there for you, you have to communicate your needs and your wants. But we'll talk about that on another episode for sure. I think what's most important right here and right now with this conversation is for people to understand that it is, yes, it's work, but it is the most valuable work to do for your future self and your family. To have yourself set up with the support you're going to need. You may not need every player, but you are definitely going to need at least some of these star players. And so if you're thinking about it beforehand, you decrease the risk of stress and trauma in the event that you need some specific help. And that's my whole thing. After working in the birth space for 4 years, my whole passion is about increasing education and support so that we can reduce the risk of trauma. And I think it's really important for us to remember that we were created for community. The Lord in the Garden of Eden even said it is not good for us to be alone. And he created a partner. God created us to thrive in the context of a village. Each person has a role and is able to support one another well. Because I think the biggest mistake is with being okay with our culture of not having a village mentality. We are so isolated. And half the time, we don't even realize it. That doesn't mean you don't need a village. It just means you have to do the extra work to put pieces into place. And so with all these players on this birth team that I've explained, I hope that you realize also that the reason why you need them is because when you just have the medical provider, your OB or your midwife, and you're expecting them to fill the role of all these other people, they don't. I think we all need to understand that your doctor and your midwife are there to make sure you and your baby are safe medically. That's pretty much it. They are not there to hold your hand. They might, but that's not their role. They're not there to teach you about the process of birth and what to expect. They might, but that's not their role. They are very busy, focused, and specialized on the medical aspect of your care. And that's really important. You want them to be focused on their role, but that leaves so many gaps in other places. And if you don't have this curated support team for your birth, it is likely that you will fall through the cracks in a lot of other places. And most of the time, that ends up having a ridiculous effect on our mental health. So I hope you feel encouraged and empowered to start building your dream birth team. Remember that you are so important, and having the people around you who will lift you up and make this experience beautiful and safe is not just for people with a certain lifestyle or a certain number in their bank account. It's for anyone. It's for you. And so if you have any more questions about building your birth team, or if you need more support, I'm here for you. Let's connect. If you're not pregnant yet, or maybe you're early in pregnancy, you just have general questions, go ahead and send me an email or DM me on social media. But if you're pregnant or in postpartum and you really need support, I have consultations times open on my website. Go ahead and reach out to me there, and we can schedule time to talk about what you need. Don't forget to share this episode with someone who would gain a lot from it. Let's keep supporting each other and growing families and our village with confidence and peace. Go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment if this episode spoke to you. Until next time.